Raghav, so good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure.
You're one of those people who I very rarely get envious about people's jobs, and you have one of those because you get to geek out on good audio every day, and that's a cool space to be in.
Yeah, it's a fun job to have.
How did you get into this?
I really thought that headphones and earphones were a good business, and that's how I really got into it. I was inventing a job for myself and no one wanted to give me one. And it just seemed logical that in a country like India, where we've got literally an unlimited appetite for music, and we have the access to all the music in the world available virtually for free, headphones and earphones was the only missing link. So it really made sense as a business. And I could see that people were doing a pretty crappy job selling headphones and earphones. If you would walk into a Chroma or a Reliance or whatever, they just hung like a pen drive on the wall waiting for someone to buy it. So I felt that, somebody's got to do a better job than this, and that's how I got into it.
How long has Headphone Zone been there?
Wow, we've been around now for 11 or 12 years. So we started as a small little shop in a mall, went up and scaled it up to about 14 shops across India, shut them all down, and then went online.
Yeah. And how many brands or how many headphones do you keep now?
We've got, I think, over 1,500 headphones on Headphone Zone now, and they're from about 110 different brands. So we keep seeing new brands come in, brands go out, almost all on a weekly basis.
And since you deal in this on a day-to-day basis, what's the lowest price point and what's the most expensive that you have in your range?
We've got headphones and earphones that are as cheap as 500 rupees. And then, they can go up all the way till about 7-8 lakhs. And they all have something in common, which is for the price, they sound pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think as a audiophile or a wannabe audiophile, I think that's been the fun thing to see how prices or things have just become more accessible in the last 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Let's get into it. To me, having a good pair of headphones or earphones is not negotiable because, again, you listen to music so much during a day. You'll spend on so many other things, but why not just invest in a decent pair? And one of the first episodes we did on the podcast was around vinyl, but there the thing is you have to invest in speakers, and one very important component of all of that is room treatment and acoustics.
Yeah.
And headphones and earphones just take that whole equation out of the picture.
Yeah, room treatment and room acoustics is one part of it, but the room itself is an investment, right? Headphones and earphones you can, put on the back seat of your car, you can have it in your bathroom, you can, literally carry it to work, you can listen to music everywhere. And I think a lot of us do. But I think one of the things that we don't realize is when you got a pair of headphones on, it's more than just, having a device that plays back music. It can make a lot of difference to the way you listen to your music and, how much you're going to really enjoy it. And I think we're so used to this idea that a headphone's just an extension of, whatever we're doing on our mobile phone or our, laptop or whatever. It's there for calls, it's there for movies, it's there for Netflix, it's there for everything. But when you really think of it, a headphone is just a miniaturized speaker. And if you're someone who cares about, the way you're listening to music, the headphone's capable of really bringing that music to life.
You also do these sessions where you go over songs or albums and explain people like, just hear that on the left or hear that, right?
Yeah. So we do these guided listening sessions. They're all done for charity. We invite people to come over and spend an afternoon with us at our experience studio in Mumbai. And it's typically on the weekend, so we get a nice bunch of 25-30 guys who come in. We hook them up with the finest headphones literally anywhere in the world to listen to an artist or a genre or a musician. And the goal is very, very simple. If you're someone who cares about the music you're listening to, who cares about the artist and the album, you feel emotionally connected to it in some way, this headphone is going to be able to blow your brains away and make you listen to things that you've never heard before. And invariably, we have people who are hardcore Amit Trivedi fans, hardcore A.R. Rahman fans that come for the A.R. Rahman and Amit Trivedi listening sessions. And their first reaction is, oh my God, what have I been listening to all these years? It's a penny drop moment when you listen to your artist and your favorite music like that.
This is one common I think emotion between that vinyl episode as well, right? That the moment you hear a sound properly, like, damn, what was I listening to all this while?
Yeah.
Uh, should we talk about the different technologies in headphones, earphones, your basics, planar magnetics versus dynamic drivers and stuff?
Sure. So, I mean, broadly speaking, we have two kinds of headphones that we talk about. One are over-ear on-ear headphones that basically sit on your head. And then you have in-ear earphones, or what we call in-ear monitors. That's a sexier term for it these days, which basically kind of go into your ear and like rest on your ear itself. The most people who are listening to music at home on their desk would tend to have a larger full-sized headphone that they're wearing. If you're somebody who's on the move and wanting to listen to something while traveling and want to put your headphones into your pocket, you're likely to use an in-ear monitor. I don't think that there's a question of which one's better. It's a very personal preference. If people like in-ears, they just like in-ears, and headphones just like headphones. And then you have people like me who might have both. We listen to headphones on the desk and then an in-ear when we're traveling around. Of course, a larger full-sized headphone allows you to put a larger speaker in there, and a bigger speaker means that the speaker is capable of playing more sounds and doing a lot of different things. A smaller speaker has to work a lot harder, but the end goal of all headphones, whether it's big or small, expensive or cheap, is essentially to fool your brain into believing that the music you're listening to is being performed right in front of you. That's basically, if you ask me, that's the only way of measuring how good or bad a headphone is on a scale of 0 to 100, how close does it come to fooling your brain. With an in-ear monitor, that becomes a lot harder because you've basically got a tinier speaker, which is about half an inch away from your eardrum, that's trying to fool your brain into believing that there's a live concert that's being performed right in front of you. So typically you'll find that different brands and different manufacturers have different tricks up their sleeves to make these in-ears even more capable. One very simple one is that instead of putting one speaker, they put multiple speakers, and we call these driver units because that's essentially what's producing sound. So you've got one that is focused only on the treble, one that's focused on the mid-range, one that's focused on the bass, and then how do we get all three of them to work really, really well together? Then people came up with this idea that the regular speaker, the speakers that you and I are familiar with, that we see on the speaker on a car audio system or in a cheap pair of headphones, you have to visualize it a bit like a cone. You've got a cone with a magnet behind it. Magnet moves, cone produces sound. Now the problem with something like this is that you've got this one cone that's trying to produce all kinds of frequencies, the bass, the treble, the mids, and that becomes really, really hard because if one portion of the cone moves, all portions of the cone have to move in some shape or form or the other, and this can cause distortion. So you and I may not understand what distortion is because we're so used to listening to it on a cheap, crappy pair of headphones. But when you listen to any of the fancy high-end headphones, that distortion goes away. And how do they do that? One way of doing that is to use something called a planar magnetic driver, which is a fancy sounding term, but the physics of it is really, really simple. That you replace the cone with a diaphragm, which itself is a conductor of electricity. So when you have the audio signal that passes through it, the diaphragm starts moving because it's sandwiched between two gigantic magnets. So audio passes through it, interacts with the magnetic field, starts moving on its own. Now this isn't a cone, this is just a flat piece of paper, and therefore you find that it's capable of playing all frequencies with very, very minimal distortion. Now these are what we call planar magnetic drivers. You'll find them on planar magnetic headphones and earphones. There's a downside to it. The downside is that the magnet is sometimes very, very heavy because it needs to be really powerful. And the other part of it is that you need an incredible amount of power for this to work really, really well. So typically people would tend to use these in full-sized headphones, but they need to plug it into a headphone amplifier to give it that power. Now, if you have to push the joke even further, you do away with the magnets altogether, and you have something called electrostatic headphones, which have electrodes in there instead of magnets, and this gives you an incredible amount of power to get these headphones to smack from left to right and right to left, giving you superb sounding experience. The only downside is now you need something to power those electrodes, so you have this energizer or this massive amplifier that you have to carry around with your headphones wherever you go. So one way of thinking of it is that you almost always have a trade-off. You can get great sound with some amount of inconvenience, or you can get a convenient sounding headphone that doesn't necessarily sound great, but you can never get both.
That's a lot of work. You get your amp, energizer, get the headphones, and they're heavy.
Yeah.
And I don't think they visually look that great either when you have them on.
Yeah, they look very industrial.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone imagined you walking around with these headphones on.
I think also with a good pair of headphones, they will last you a lifetime, or they can last you a lifetime.
Yes, absolutely. Some of the headphones that I have, they're almost 35, 40 years old. And they're worth several times the price that someone paid for it back then. A good sounding headphone, well taken care of, will last you a lifetime. I mean, it's something that you can quite literally gift your kids on their wedding day, and they'll value it.
So I think the first good pair of headphones I got was the Sennheiser Momentums.
Yeah.
Of course, you replace the ear cups at some point, which I have, and the cable also detaches, so you can get a new one. You can upgrade it. Cable's another talking point in earphones, headphones, but yeah, I think they're about 10, 12 years old, and they're great. They're even great right now.
They're a legendary pair of headphones because Sennheiser developed these headphones at a time when Beats by Dre was the craze out there. No one could have imagined a $300 headphone, and Sennheiser said, why didn't we think of that before? And the answer was the Momentum, and it's a phenomenal sounding headphone, superbly well built, German engineering at its best.
Sennheiser ownership changed, right, recently?
Yes, they've been now acquired by a Swiss company called Sonova, who's famous for making hearing aids. But the good thing is that they've got some amount of expertise in understanding how human hearing works, and they're trying to, bring that to the consumers through a brand like Sennheiser.
So overall, it's heading in a good direction.
I would say so. In general, I would say, a lot of the brands that are traditional audio brands are kind of realizing that, hey, listen, if we're going to have to fight the Apple AirPods in the consumer business, you're going to have deeper pockets than Mr. Tim Cook. And that's like a losing race. So rather than trying to be the biggest, why not just try to be the best? So a lot of the brands are now kind of focused on how do we make better products for the few people who care about good sounding headphones than just trying to make popular products that are going to beat the AirPods.
So before we get into your picks, and I'll chime in whenever I can with if I have some suggestions as well. Before we get on to the actual headphones and earphones part, what about the source?
So the source is a tricky one. Now, the thing that I keep telling everybody who's looking to buy a headphone is that to start listening to good music on your smartphone, there's really three things you got to do. The first is you got to start listening to high resolution music. We have Apple Music available in India. It's the easiest way of listening to high resolution music. All you have to do is go onto your settings and turn it on. And high resolution music, allows you to stream music at least CD quality, if not higher than CD quality, onto your smartphone. It's very convenient. The second thing you got to do is you got to get yourself a digital to analog converter.
It's that
DAC.
time.
And the reason for that is very simple, because our mobile phones and laptops are not very good at playing high resolution music. So putting in a dongle that you can plug into your phone via USB-C or Lightning makes a huge difference to the audio quality. The third thing is you got to stop using wireless headphones. You got to use a wired headphone, because the Bluetooth on your wireless headphone can't play high resolution music. So if you've got these three things down, and this isn't expensive, this is something that's very, very affordable and accessible, you immediately elevate the way that you're listening to music. So source-wise, what's amazing is that we now have access to 4 billion songs, the world's content available on our smartphones. For as cheap as 149 rupees a month, you have high resolution music streaming to Android and iOS and your laptop. So that part of it is sorted out. I mean, for virtually no cost at all, you have the ability to listen to the highest quality of music with an unlimited catalog anywhere. You got to now take care of everything that comes after it to make sure that that is reaching your ears at the highest quality possible.
See, when it comes to DACs, I think, again, for a lot of people, it's just that inconvenience, right? That you always have something else hanging around or whatever. But I'm going to get a little deeper into DACs a little later, because I really want to talk about Chord Mojo and a bunch of other things. Let's get into your suggestions. Let's start. So we're going to do this for headphones and for earphones.
Yeah.
You want to go over all in the same price category, or you want to do headphones first and earphones first?
I think earphones are generally available at cheaper price points. So, you'll find for less than 10,000 rupees, which I think is a reasonable price for anybody to pick up the headphones or earphones. My suggestions will almost always be in-ear monitors or in-ear earphones, because for the price, what you're getting is phenomenal in terms of sound. It's when you start going at some of the higher end price points between 10 and 15,000 rupees that the headphones start sounding really good as well. So generally speaking, if someone were to ask me for something at a relatively low budget, my immediate pick is to stick to earphones. And once you start going between 10 and 15 and 20,000 rupees, the headphones start sounding really, really good on their own.
Cool. So let's just break it price point wise, and wherever you want to suggest earphones, you can. Whenever headphones come in, you can do that as well.
Sure. So the one thing that I will warn all the listeners is that most of my suggestions are going to be wired headphones and earphones, for the very simple reason, like I said, headphones can be convenient or they can sound good, but very rarely both. So you might find that a whole bunch of your favorite brands or a whole bunch of earphones that you're familiar with in the gym are not going to be on my suggestion list.
The only thing is, so I've been playing around with the iPhone 4S.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love again is the headphone jack. And I was like, why did they have to take that out?
It's true. Apple's vision for the world is, everyone listening to music completely wireless.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with under 5,000.
All right, for under 5,000 rupees, you've got a couple of different options. At the 2,000 rupee price point, one of my favorite earphones is from a Chinese brand. And, some of these Chinese brands, we call them Chi-Fi brands. That's a lot of fun. It's a brand called KZ, and they make a earphone called the ZSN Pro X, which is just under 2,000 rupees. What's unique about this is it's a professional in-ear monitor. Artists use this on stage. It comes with 2 drivers per side. One is a balanced armature driver, very sensitive, very accurate, the stuff you'd find on hearing aids. And it has a dynamic driver, which is your traditional cone-shaped driver that gives it the punch, the boom on the bass. So now you've got a very, very accurate sound for the vocals and the mid-range and the treble. And you've got a fun low-end bass that kicks in, that keeps the music fun and interesting to listen to. And this is happening simultaneously in both ears for less than 2,000 rupees. It's incredible. So that's my top pick for 2,000 rupees. Become a little bit more expensive, and for about 4,000 rupees or so, you have from the same manufacturer, KZ, now a planar magnetic driver, on each side. And I have no idea how you fit a planar magnetic driver with these powerful magnets on both the ears. And they're incredibly accurate. They're very, very easy to listen to. And you'll find that the bass is there, the treble is there, there's virtually no distortion, and they can sound incredible for the price. So that would be those two would be my top picks for less than 5,000 rupees.
These are the planar magnetics you were talking about?
Yeah. 4,000 rupees in a tiny little in-ear monitor. I have no idea how the Chinese do it.
Yeah, and has the whole KZ dust settled?
So what's happened is that a whole bunch of Chi-Fi brands and manufacturers have figured out that, oh my God, these guys are in on something. It's incredible what they can make at this price point. So you have virtually every 3 or 4 months a new winner that has to be crowned, because they just sound a little bit better than the previous winner. So the flavor of the season is a earphone called the 7 Hertz Zero. Earlier this week, there was a new winner that was announced, which is the Tangzu Wagner. And I have no doubt by the time that this episode is released, there'll be a new winner that's going to be crowned. And all of these earphones are just trying to be just a little better for that 2,000 rupee price point. It's a hugely competitive space.
What a time to be alive. It's great. Like the first time I got my KZs, I was blown away. I don't know which ones I got because there were so many to pick from.
Yeah.
And every 2 months they'd be like, okay, now there are 4 drivers, now there are 6 drivers.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really good stuff. Okay, so 5,000 is covered. What about moving up to 10,000?
So 10,000 is an interesting price point, right? For less than 10,000 rupees, I think it's about 7, there's a very nice in-ear monitor that I like called the Moondrop Aria. It's a beautiful matte black color IEM. It sounds really, really good. Very, very flat and balanced. No frequencies exaggerated. And I would say that for the price, what you're getting is phenomenal value for money. One of the best, I'd say. For slightly over 10, Sennheiser now has their first entry-level in-ear monitor at a very accessible price point of 12,000 rupees. It's a single dynamic driver, but it's German engineering at its best, beautifully crafted. It sounds better than any other Sennheiser I've heard for less than 50,000 rupees.
Oh, wow.
So they've really gone out on a limb with this one. And it's for 12,000 rupees. So I think it's affordable enough for anybody who's kind of like taking a plunge into the hobby. There's another...
What's the model name?
Oh, yeah, sorry. It's called the Sennheiser IE200. It's brand new. Very nice. And there's another earphone that I really like at a similar price point. It's from Singapore. It's a very boutique brand called One Custom. And this has 3 driver units. It's got 2 balanced armatures, 1 dynamic drivers on each side. And it comes with these really tiny dip switches that allow you to tune and tweak the sound signature on the earphones a little bit. And I've recommended these to, maybe about 24 performing artists and musicians over the last couple of months, and they all swear by it. They use it on stage. They absolutely love it, and it fits into most ears like a glove. So I would say that those 2 earphones for just over 10,000 rupees are great picks.
This Sennheiser one, the only in-ears I've had from them were the 215s,
yeah,
which were quite good, and you would get them up down to like 6,000 on discounts or whatever.
Yeah.
How are they as compared to this?
Oh, this is just leagues apart. When they were making those wired earphones back then, they wanted to sound all right, but they really cared about the fact that people wanted to buy these to use along with their iPods or use them along with the players. Then this entire audiophile wave kind of hit. Now, Sennheiser's got in-ear monitors that go up to $1.5 lakh. And they sound phenomenal. Of course they do. Now the question is, how do you get that kind of sound, or at least a fraction of that sound, affordable to most people to experience and understand? So that's where this new Sennheiser IE200 comes from. So if you're someone who's used a wired Sennheiser earphone in the past, this is going to sound nothing like that. It's going to be way better.
Dude, I've not spent money on earphones in so long, and I think you're going to change that for me. Not a very good thing. Bumping up to price points, 30,000.
Okay, so now it starts getting very interesting. You've got, in the headphone space, you've got a couple of interesting headphones that kind of are very, very popular at this price point. One of my favorite headphones, and I have a pair of this at home and the office, everywhere. It's called a Meze 99 Classics. Meze is a Romanian brand. Beautiful handcrafted headphones.
The wood ones, right?
Yeah.
The wood finishing. Yeah.
They've got wooden ear cups. They're absolutely stunning. I've been using mine for the last 5 years, and they're just as popular and sound just as good. They're for about 25,000 rupees. To me, that's a great headphone for someone who just wants an all-rounder that does everything everywhere. Then you've got 2 other products which are equally popular at the price point. The Sennheiser HD 650. This is a cult classic headphone. They've been around for 25 years. They've been a top seller everywhere. And for about 25,000 rupees, musicians, artists, studio producers, and audiophiles all swear by it. But there's a catch. A headphone like this needs a serious amplifier. You can't just plug this into your smartphone and your laptop and hit play. It's going to need a serious amplifier. Then you have the incumbents, which is a Chinese company called Hi-Fi Man, which has a planar magnetic headphone called the Sundara, which is at the same price point. So between these 3 headphones, you've got a phenomenal amount of quality, sound, just insane value for money that's available to consumers today. And you can't go wrong with any of the 3. They've just got slightly different pros and cons on them.
Sundara is now updated, right? Or recently updated?
Yeah, I mean... with the first generation, Sundara wasn't very good, and then they fixed it, and then they improved it even further. So every year they quietly kind of tweak the Sundara a little bit, and the ones that have been available now for the last couple of years are just incredible. They're the best seller for good reason. I
have a pair of Hi-Fi Man dynamic ones, which I got from Mars Drop back in the day.
Oh, yeah. Those
quite nice.
Yeah. So Hi-Fi Man, they just know how to get value out of money, or with each of their headphones. It's just phenomenal.
But again, you just look really funny wearing them.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really stare yourself in the mirror.
You either have dignity or you can have good sound. One of those.
You can't have both.
Can't have both. You know what? Let's take the price points higher.
Okay.
Now I'm assuming we're into territory where you will be really serious about this to spend that kind of money.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that you should know is that when we're starting to talk about some of the higher end products, the first thing I tell people is whatever be your budget, let's say it's $1 lakh, you have to split this budget 50 and 50, right? 50% of your budget goes towards the source, which is the amp and the DAC and everything else that comes with it. 50 of it goes to the headphones or the earphones themselves, and that can be a little flexible. You can be 60-40, but never 90-10. It's almost impossible to take a budget and spend most of it on the headphones and expect it to sound good. You got to split it in some kind of a reasonable ratio. So when we talk about a 50,000 rupee or a 1 lakh rupee headphone, it's not really a 1 lakh rupee setup. I mean, I'm going to visualize that you're going to have to spend at least another lakh or so on the amp and the DAC and everything that goes along with it. But in the long run, what you get is a phenomenal output that makes the entire thing worth its while. Price no bar. If I have to say my absolute favorite headphones out there, for 1.5 lakh rupees, you have the Odyssey MM500. This is a Manny Moroccan signature series meant to be used in the finest studios in the world, but they sound incredible at home. It's a planar magnetic headphone from America. They sound absolutely phenomenal with even relatively inexpensive amplifiers. So I would say that that's great value for money. At about 2 lakh rupees, there is the Meze Empyrean, which is another planar magnetic headphone that sounds just superb for what it does. It's one of those headphones that I will not listen to an AR Rahman soundtrack without. I just use it with everything. At about 3 lakh rupees, you have hands down my favorite headphone of all time, which is the Stax SR009 electrostatic headphones. These are so crisp, so sharp, and so detailed. I use them almost exclusively for hard rock and heavy metal. So when a drummer or a guitarist is, just shredding it, on most headphones it's just going to sound like a wall of noise hitting at you. On the Stax, you're going to be able to hear this, minute moments of silence between two shreds, and that's what makes it fun.
Are these at your experience center?
Yeah, they're available at our experience center for everyone and anyone to try out. And if you are not from suburbs of Mumbai, then we do road shows across the country called Headphone Connect. We're pretty much doing a show every month in a different part of the country. So there's almost certainly going to be one that's close to you at some point of time to come down and listen to it.
I actually must say one thing. I've been to these kind of listening rooms across the world, Japan, Singapore, in these cafes that have a lot of stuff, hybrid of cafes and shops. The collection that you have, that'll rival like any of them, hands down.
Yeah, I mean, we're very lucky that we have this collection, and I've been a bit of a collector in multiple things now, so it just instinctively happened that we wanted to make sure that we had every headphone that anybody would ever walk in and ask us.
So when you're talking about splitting the budget, right, the other thing is that, let's say you want to build your system in time, I would think that then rather definitely spend more money on the source or the DAC, because that'll last you with multiple other devices, headphones, earphones, than skipping out on the source of the DAC.
Yeah, I mean, invariably you find that a person buys a headphone and gives us a call saying that, hey Raghav, it doesn't sound very nice, what should I get for the amp and DAC? And then we help them buy the amp and DAC, and they come back and buy the second headphone and the third headphone and the fourth headphone just to add that variety that you really need in terms of sound. But the amp and the DAC remains constant. So the advice that I give most people is that headphones are timeless. You're going to be listening to them for a long time. Amps and especially DACs, with time, technology improves, and you typically find that what was a great sounding DAC 5 years back is now an ordinary sounding DAC because the latest greatest is out there. So you want to buy something that you can use with all your headphones without necessarily thinking about, hey, is this going to be good enough, or is my headphone not going to sound to its full potential because I've skimped on something, in the source. But the funny thing is that, the audiophile world takes a full circle now, and a whole bunch of people really like these vintage DACs, which are old school DACs, which have these R2R resistors in there, and that's become a bit of a craze. And
I have one.
I know, and
so good.
I can't for the life of mine imagine why, after all this while with technology going to where it is, people like you still want to listen to music old school with with a classic DAC.
Yeah. So we'll take a short break. I really want to talk more about DACs. That's very, very geeky. Also want to touch upon Bluetooth earphones, though.
Yeah.
That may be a little. You might have a different view than what I do. So yeah, we'll take a little short break and we'll come back after these messages.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. We have a special announcement. Introducing Club Paisa Vaisa, where you get episodes of Paisa Vaisa 3 days before release, plus bonus and ad-free content, and access to the full show archive. What? So get your yearly membership today for only rupees 699. Log on to club.ivmpodcast.com/paisavaisa. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus talks to author Prochi Mehta. They talk about her book, Who is a Parsi? She spoke about the studies of the Parsi community and focusing on the rights and privileges of women. On Puliyabazi, Khyati, Saurabh and Pranay talk about ChatGPT and ask if AI is here to stay. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet talks to Pranay Swaroop, founder of Chartbox, about influencer marketing, building media tech products and more. And on Has It Aged Well, Abbas and Ujita kick off the Valentine Month series by discussing Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge with comedian Prashasti Singh. New episodes available on the IVM Pop feed and YouTube channel. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting stuff for you. Follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. And if you like our shows, spread the word, tell your friends, and don't forget to rate and review the shows wherever you're listening to them. You'll also find all our shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, Yono SBI, Capgemini, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you for making this possible.
Welcome back to Anish Thing. I'm with Raghav. We're geeking out on headphones. I really want to talk a lot about DACs. This might put a few people to sleep, but fellow Enthu audiophiles will understand this. Before we get on to that, I just realized one thing. When you spoke about the earphones under 5,000 rupees, the 2KZs, an important thing to note here is that even those come with detachable cables. So even tomorrow if there's wear and tear or for some reason you want to upgrade your cable and all that, option's still available and just goes towards the longevity of the product.
Yeah, I mean, so with most in-ears and headphones, what are the parts that tend to get spoiled? It's either the cable because, we're coiling it up and using it everywhere, or it's the ear tip itself because with time and use the ear tips become bad, both of which are interchangeable and upgradable. You have cables which can cost you a few hundred rupees to tens of thousands of rupees, and cables can make in some cases a little bit of a difference to your sound. And then you have ear tips, and you've got lots of exotic materials right from silicon to memory foam which are available on ear tips to change them up. So the idea is that the important part of your earphone, which is the speakers themselves, last your lifetime, and everything else that tends to get damaged is easily replaceable and upgradable.
Which are good tips, the earphone tips that you have in your collection?
So I can recommend two of them. One's from a company in the US, which is a bunch of 3M scientists who created this memory foam material that you stick onto your ear tip and you squeeze them down, put them into your ear, and it starts expanding, taking the exact shape of the inside of your ear canal, holding the earphone in place. They're a company called Comply Foam. Yeah. They sound very, very nice and they're very comfortable. The other one is a brand called SpinFit, which is from Taiwan, and they make a very unique ear tip which rotates as, and it's a little flexible. So most people's ear canals are not 90 degrees into their skull, right? They're almost a little bit in a little bit of an angle. So sometimes we're having to shove it in, keep it in place. And these ear tips kind of contour their way in depending on the angle of your ear. So they're very, very comfortable to wear. Comply
changed my life with in-ear monitors. I think those Sennheisers came with Comply tips anyways. So good once you get used to it. Coming to DACs, so I was thinking about this last night. because whenever I talk about DACs with my friends, everyone just zones out and they're like, no dude, not again. My analogy now, I hope this is simple enough to understand, is like, imagine the DAC. So the DAC is taking a digital signal and converting into audio. Anything that's producing sound will be an analog thing. So taking your MP3 or streaming and converting into analog sound for your speaker, whatever, to put out. Now the difference would be like a car engine. Every car engine is doing the same job. It's taking fuel and converting into kinetic energy. You can have a cheaper engine, you can have a Ferrari engine, right? I think that's what's happening with DACs, right? Like you can have, it's doing the same thing. Your that lightning to headphone dongle that Apple makes that costs 900 rupees is doing the same job that my DAC, which is 70,000 rupees, is doing. But it's just doing it so differently, and that blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I want you to visualize that an artist, take your favorite artist. It could be A.R. Rahman, it could be John Mayer, it could be Dream Theater, it could be anybody. Think of the multi-million-dollar studios in which they've recorded the piece of work that they're recording. It's incredible the amount of information that they are putting into their art form, layers upon layers, the nuances of the music. And they're being produced by Grammy award-winning engineers on literally the cutting edge of computing technology that's available. And you're taking all of this, compressing it into a file that you are streaming on your phone, and then expecting that a piece of equipment that costs 500 or 1,000 rupees is going to be able to reproduce it back in the same quality as what the artist, kind of put it out there. That's not happening. And that's primarily because the DAC, the digital to analog converter, in your laptop, in your phone, is trying to replicate what was on the other side of the studio. That's you're not going to be able to do it, and it's woefully inadequate in its ability to do that well. So a high-end DAC, and that's debatable as to what that price point should be, is just so much more capable and does such a better job of giving you that experience of what really went into the nuances and the details. On the surface of it, you'll find that it's playing back the song, and all DACs do that. But when you have a good headphone or a good earphone, you should be able to very clearly perceive a difference in the sound quality. And when I say sound quality, what do I mean? Its ability to fool your brain into believing that the music is being performed right there in front of you. Good DACs do that.
So there are two companies that I think have in some way become very popular, got a legendary status. Also lots of debate between these two because they're completely different ways of doing the same thing. I think Denafrip's Aries 2, which I have, the old school R2R ladder DAC, and then the Chord Mojo.
Yeah.
I think Mojo just killed it, right? It's just such a phenomenal product.
Yeah. Chord Electronics is a very small little boutique brand from the UK. And it started by folks who were making components for the aviation industry, for fighter aircrafts. They really understand how to make high quality products. And the Mojo was released maybe about 6 years back, a pocket sized device, half the size of your iPhone, which plugs into your phone or your laptop and brings DAC technology that would cost lakhs and lakhs out there for the most discerning of hi-fi enthusiasts, and brings it to a form factor in a shape that you can kind of plug in and carry anywhere with you to stream music. And it was so insanely popular that when they released the Mojo 2, which was last year, the Mojo 1 was already the single best other product which was out there at the same price point. So the Mojo 2 really didn't have to be released at all for it to be considered the absolute best, and it just pushed the boundary even further as to what it can do. Simply put, it's a digital to analog converter and a headphone amplifier. It costs about 45,000 rupees, but it's absolutely worth its money if you are somebody who's buying a headphone north of 40,000 rupees to use along with it.
Like, I kid you not, please go to the Headphone Zone Andheri store, put on a decent pair of headphones, plug it in your iPhone or Android, plug it into a Chord Mojo, and that's it. there's nothing more to explain.
Yeah. Now, Denafrips takes a very different approach. Denafrips is a Chinese company. They're marketed by a Singaporean outfit, and they take old school R2R ladder technology, which is the way DACs used to be made, 20, 30 years back. And they're massive, but they sound very, very natural, organic. So especially people who are vinyl heads really, really like the sound and the characteristic of that DAC. Sometimes when DACs are very, very technical, they're very analytical, they almost seem to have a little bit of a metallic texture to the music. It almost seems to have a sheen, as they describe it. And the Denafrips DACs take that away. They make it very, very easy and natural to sound. The easiest way to tell is wood should sound like wood, and brass should sound like brass, and a violin should sound like a violin, not like a keyboard is playing a violin tone. And an R2R DAC and a Denafrips DAC does that. They're phenomenal value for money at the Aries 2, which you use. For 70,000 rupees, I kid you not, I think it probably sounds better than equipment that I've heard several times the price.
The only thing is that the Aries 2 is not a portable device. It's a big desktop.
Yeah.
It's designed for speakers, not even for headphones. Excuse me. But I think, to me, the way I think of the sound out of the Denafrips is, imagine it's a dimly lit room with warm light and you're listening to music. It's just that comfort, warm, nice sound. It may not be the most accurate or whatever, but it just sounds so good.
Yeah, and I think what goes to without saying is that to really bring out the potential of what these DACs can do, you got to pair them along with good speakers, good headphones out there. Crappy headphones and crappy speakers aren't going to sound very good with the greatest of DACs.
What's your take on Bluetooth stuff? Because we can't avoid it, right? I swear by my AirPods Pro.
Yeah, I use my AirPods Pro for maybe 7-8 hours in a day. I use them for calls. I use them when I'm running, when I'm in the gym, when I'm doing yoga, when I'm talking to my parents, when I'm watching Netflix. I use it for virtually everything. The only thing I will not do with a pair of AirPods is listen to music. But that being said, it's when you talk about the convenience it offers, I mean, no one does it better than Apple.
Yeah.
Pop open the hood, it pairs along with all your devices seamlessly. It's right there. And now, Apple's pushed the boundaries of what the headphones can do with spatial audio. So, you put on an Apple TV show and it tracks your head movements and pans the audio along with it. It's just phenomenal what they can do. And I would say the AirPods Pro hands down have the best microphones inbuilt on them. So for calls, for recordings, for virtually anything that you're doing, I would say the AirPods Pro just sound so much better, to the other person at the other end of a phone call. And it's incredible what they've packed into it.
To me, if you have an iPhone, you have to have AirPods Pro. That's the one I prefer. I go the 3 as well. But sound, of course, but again, I'd compromise, right? But I think for what they've done, and it's just phenomenal in every way. And I'm not an Atmos fan. I'm warming up to it. But there have been moments where I've looked around saying, what was that sound?
Yeah.
And then you realize, okay, that was inside my AirPods.
Yeah. So somebody told me recently that the R&D budget for Apple's AirPods is more than the total revenue for some of the world's biggest headphone brands. So, these guys have put the money where the mouth is. They've really built a product that doesn't scream high-end tech when you look at it, but it's all under the hood that they've gone in there.
Yeah. One of my favorite Apple products of all time. I think there are also these graphs that show that if AirPods was a separate company, it would be drive revenue than most other audio companies and stuff.
Yeah. But that being said, today when you look at what Bluetooth is capable of and the limitations that Bluetooth has in playing high resolution music and things like that, there are some very specific use cases which I think they do a phenomenal job with. The greatest noise cancellation headphone of all time would have to be the Bose's Quiet Comfort series. They introduced the world to what noise cancellation means, and I think for a long time every single person who was a serious frequent flyer had a pair of Boses with them. And with iteration after iteration, they just got better and better and better. Today, unfortunately, Bose is a little bit out of the wireless noise cancellation game, and the new crown champion of noise cancellation headphones out there is Sony.
Yeah.
And the Sony's 1000X series, the latest iteration of which is the 1000XM5, is hands down the best noise cancellation headphone out there in the market. They're for about 25,000 rupees, so similarly priced as a pair of AirPods. The amount of tech that they've packed into it is just incredible. And even for a wireless headphones, I would say that they sound very, very, very good. So I would say that that's one of my favorite wireless headphones which are out there. And it's going to be pretty hard for other companies to beat Sony when it comes to the noise cancellation technology, at least, because they've pretty much bought every single patent that's out there related to noise cancellation tech to, kind of keep that lead up there in front.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. I have the XM3s, and they're still, there's no reason for me to really upgrade those.
Yeah, and the only thing that would give way on those XM3s with time is the batteries, because they're not replaceable.
That's starting to happen.
But as long as, you're not using it for extended periods of time, these headphones are going to be just as good as, anything else that's out there from any other brand.
What's the future of wireless, though? Is there any new codecs in the works that'll... There was so much noise around what Apple might do, completely change to another system.
So I think you've got multiple people in the wireless game who are doing their own thing to kind of improve what Bluetooth and wireless technology is capable of doing. You have the Sonos school of thought, which is that everything should be wireless and connected to Wi-Fi, and it would seamlessly pair with everything and do a great job. And you're going to see some headphones come out from Sonos trying to replicate that same ecosystem. The only problem is that we have a Wi-Fi network at home. We don't have it when we're walking around everywhere else. Then you have the Apple school of thought, which is that you use proprietary chips, and Apple has complete control of the ecosystem. So as long as you pair it along with an iOS device, Apple would be able to push the boundaries of the information that's being transmitted. But Apple genuinely thinks that the future of audio is to do with spatial audio, which is how do you bring a home theater experience to people wearing an AirPod or wearing a headphone. So I think with the next generation of AirPods and AirPods Maxes, you're going to see a huge improvement in the movie watching experience on the headphones. Similarly, you'll find that Apple's pushing really, really hard on spatial audio for music. So, all of a sudden you have Pink Floyd albums and you have Guns N' Roses albums, which now are made for Atmos and Atmos mixes. But the only way that you can really listen to this is if, you've got an Atmos enabled system at home and you want to kind of listen to this music out there. And Apple's going to try and bring that technology with next generation products onto their headphones. Or at least that's what I think. And then you have Qualcomm, which is doing a whole bunch of interesting things out there with the aptX codec, which is what Qualcomm works on. The gaming headphones are a huge deal out there. A lot of gamers want wireless technology but want it on low latency so that they can use it for gaming. So the new aptX codecs are incredible in terms of latency. Serious gamers are able to use wireless headphones now at virtually no latency. And the other thing that aptX is working on, which is very, very cool, is a multi-point technology where you could connect to one Bluetooth source with multiple headphones. And the way that aptX is, or Qualcomm is visualizing that you're going to use this is in places like airports, where every single person inside the terminal can listen to airport radio using Bluetooth. And that's a very exciting idea for me, because what that means is that you can quite literally have audiences listen to live music on a stage using Bluetooth, or listen to multiple performers and DJs using Bluetooth, and that's one direction in which wireless technology can go.
Yeah, that is interesting. It'll be fun to see, because there are so many rumors of these since the last few months, years. Interesting to see what the future is for wireless. What about your and Headphone Zone's social media handles, if anyone wants to reach out?
Of course. We're available on all social media handles. You'll find at Headphone Zone for Instagram, Headphone_Zone for Twitter. I'm available on Instagram, Raghav Somani 1988, or on Twitter at the rate Raghav Somani. I'm quite accessible on all social media. I'm a little bit of on a social media break right now, but if you DM me, I'll almost certainly respond back.
Super. Thank you so much for coming to Aneesh thing, and I'll soon be at the Andheri store.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.